Welcome back to Warzone Workshop. Today, we're going to be answering a question, and that is what happens when you take a beautiful M16, like this, and you mate it with like an Instagram gun, like this M4 right here. Well, you get an abomination. You get an unholy matrimony. You get a Call of Duty gun. Woulda, coulda, shoulda aborted it, but now you got a Call of Duty gun. Here you go. For all of you that wanted to know how you get this, that's what you do. You take a beautiful M16, and you take a functioning, respectable M4 build, you mash the two together, you play a bunch of Call of Duty, and you get this. I'm going to be cleaning all of these guns, but they're all the same. It's the same for these three rifles. The M4, the M16, and the Call of Duty mod. So I'm just going to take and show you this one so that you'll know how I do it. Alright, so here I have my Call of Duty mod M4, and I'm going to go ahead and pop it apart. To do so, we take out the pins that are in the receiver. Go ahead and pop those out. They are captive. Go ahead and pop that one. Pop the other one on the other side here. I'll take off my lower, which has my buffer tube and my fire control group, and then I'll have my upper, which has my M203 grenade launcher and my bolt carrier and the barrel and all that stuff. So then you're going to go ahead and grab your charging handle and pull on your bolt and your charging handle, wiggle that, and it'll come right out. Now your bolt carrier is stripped out. I go ahead and I clean off the inner well in here. I clean these out. It's really dirty. Even when you don't shoot them that much, just shooting a little bit gets them dirty. So I'll clean that out and then I'll lubricate the inside of it. The lubricant I'm going to be using today is just going to be some premium Airsoft Innovations gas blowback oil. That's just one we'll be using today. If you're into this type of thing, you'll probably have an applicator like this with some silicone oil, or maybe an applicator like this one that you refill, and then you go and drip 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 all your stuff out. The Airsoft Innovations, the tiny little bottle that we got here, has its own little applicator built on, so that's what we're going to use today. And here's your bolt carrier, and it's nozzle. It's a blowback unit. You want to make sure everything's nice and tight and that there's nothing loose on it. As far as this part goes, make sure that that's nice and snug. Make sure your wheel's good and that it hasn't broken off. I've seen where they get pretty banged up. Now, mine's got all this buildup and residue in it, so I'm going to be taking this and I'm going to be cleaning all this out. It'll just make it function better. A lot of that's just lubricant that's built up and gathered dust and other particles, and it's just all gunky. So I'll be cleaning that out. We're also going to be finding lots of little metal shavings and stuff like that. And it happens. It's lots of metal on metal friction, and it causes that type of thing. Also, some of it could just be particles and stuff that get into the gun from the gas in, the magazine and whatnot. Stuff floating in the air. All of that can get in and mix up inside of your chamber as this thing's chugging along, doing its thing. But yeah. Go ahead and set that to the side. This is the charging handle, and it can get dirty too, especially since it gets exposed to the outside of the gun when you pull on it and pull it out of the upper receiver, and then it chugs back inside. And it can get little metal fragments and stuff on it. Your hands will get dirty. Your gun mat will get dirty. It's unavoidable. It's just what happens. It's part of having gas blowback guns. Now, here is the lower receiver. You got your fire control group right here, and a common thing that you'll see, and I'll just go ahead and talk about it, is the hammer right here. On a lot of WeTech guns, you'll need to file this back a little bit, because in semi-auto it will overcatch. Mine's not doing that, but sometimes it'll go back a little bit farther than it should, and it'll catch, and it'll actually act as if it's on safe when it's on semi-auto, and it'll lock up, and you won't be able to shoot it until you switch it to safe and then back to semi-auto, or to full auto and then back to semi-auto, and then it'll fire. And it's weird. You just got to file a little bit on that. I strongly urge that you put like some paper towel in here to collect the shavings of metal so that you don't get them inside of your gun, of course, because that would be bad. It would cause gunk buildup and stuff like that. So just, you know, blow it out and collect as much of it as you can. This is your buffer tube and spring and all of that stuff. This is your counterweight, which gets thrown to the back of the buffer tube and slows down, and in the real world helps with recoil and all that stuff. That's why they call it your recoil buffer and all that stuff. Helps with that, but in airsoft it's just the spring that pushes your bolt carrier when it goes chugging along backwards. It's what pushes it forward again so they can rechamber your next round. And that's why there's a spring there and all that. And to get it out, you just push back and you push this little plunger down and you take your spring guide out that way. And then you can undo your castle nut back here and take off your buffer tube. I'm not going to do that because I got it set the way I want it and I'm not having any problems with it, so I'm going to leave it that way. Right now it's in the pistol configuration. This is an AR pistol, technically, because I don't have a front grip on it. Of course, I do have a grenade launcher on it, which probably shouldn't. This is my bolt carrier, and on a lot of them, you'll see wear marks in the front of it, wear marks on the underside. You shouldn't see too much on this side right here. This side shouldn't really ever touch anything, except for when it gets into the bolt. And see, mine's got a little bend to it right in here. That's normal. It happens. It'll get a BB up in here, and the BB will cause it to jam, and when it's coming back home, it'll just ram that BB up into the side, and it'll cause a stiff bolt. But then when you get the bolt back, normally it just falls right out. It's not too super big a deal. Also, the nozzles, they will break eventually. This is a 2-piece nozzle, and they wear out eventually. You got to keep them nice and lubricated. They should reset to where they are when you pull them forward. They should just reset pretty nicely. Other than that, there's not a lot to it. You just take your gas blowback lube. If I could learn how to open a childproof lid. You pull it out. I'm dripping everywhere trying to get this on camera. I just put a little bit in there. Get some on that O-ring back there. And I'll let that go back in. I move it around a little bit. And then try to get some on the guide fins. A little bit on the guide fins. Let that go. I put a little bit inside there. I'm sure you could over lubricate it. I'm sure I'm probably guilty of that, but I put a lot of it. I put a lot on it. Okay, there we go. And then for this, normally I put a little bit in here too. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this out first before I do that. Okay, I'm just gonna put a drop in there. Now let's look at the inside of my upper receiver here. In the chamber, I got a bunch of buildup and residue. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that too. Then I'm going to clean the inside here and put a little bit of lubrication in here for when the bolt is traveling through it, just to make sure that it has a nice smooth, low friction, low resistance movement, even when the metal does occasionally bump into it when you're moving the gun and shooting. Now we're going to go ahead and put the gun back together, take our charging handle, and of course it's got those little fins, and those go in, and they find their little spot, and you go ahead and push it forward a little bit. Then you get your bolt carrier, and you put that in. You let it ride all the way back, and click it into place. And now your bolt carrier is in. Go ahead and take a look at it. See that it is in there. You can move it. There you go. Now we gotta put the upper back onto the lower, in which case the spring guide for the buffer tube will match up to the end of your bolt carrier, and that is what, of course, pushes it back into battery so that it can then fire again. Another really cool realism fact about the gas blowback rifles is that the forward assist, or close the damn bolt button, actually functions. It's got the little ribs, little ridges on the side of the bolt carrier, little gill-shaped pieces, cutouts, and if you push on the forward assist, it'll actually close your bolt and put it back into battery. If it's currently out of battery and not fully seated, you can actually force it back in, and that's what that's for. But for airsoft purposes, I would say just open that bolt and see what's wrong, because there's probably a BB in there. But yeah, let's go ahead and put the lower receiver back onto the upper receiver. Of course, we're going to take and we're going to put our hammer in the back position so that it can close properly. Then we're going to take that and we're going to attach the front. Of course, I got to open that real quick. I'm going to take the front, make sure that the pin's all the way out. Put that in. Close that pin. Got the back side in. Close that pin. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to just... This thing is really... it's just really flimsy. I wish that was better. And then got that closed. Go ahead and chamber the gun. See if it works. Pulls the bolt back. Chamber closes. Put it to semi-auto. Yep, it works. Now that is the simple basic maintenance for your WeTech M4. It's just a little bit of lube. It's not that bad. Now your barrel, of course, you're going to want to look down it when you have the gun taken apart and make sure that there's no obstructions in there. But you would know about that because if you're shooting the gun and all of a sudden your BBs don't come out, there's obviously something obstructing your barrel. So that's it, and I hope to see you next time in the war zone.